Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is our webinar 17, and we have got a packed program for you as always. We've got a huge number of people coming onto the call today. We've had over 200 people register for the call. So it's great to see you all, and thanks very much for joining us. We've got 4 campaigns live at present on the site. We've got ASX, of course, who you'll be hearing from a little bit later on. We also have Pipit, Bowsy, and Zip, which are currently live. All 4 are ESS qualified, meaning that if you're an Irish taxpayer and you invest, say, €1,000, you'll get €400 back of a tax rebate the following year when you do your tax return. So it's always useful to have that incentive to help you invest, and the government are very happy to give that to you. Zip is closing at midnight tomorrow night. They're already at 135% funded. So if you want to get and make a final investment into them, then please do so quickly before it closes. We have Pipit also live at the moment. There's 12 days left with them. They're 87% funded as of an hour or so ago. It's an excellent fintech based over in Galway. They enable a very cost-effective cash remittance service for migrant workers around the globe. They just announced just a day or two ago that they partnershipped with a company called DA5, which is opening up a large part of Latin America for the Pipit service. So they're very excited about that development as well, which has just been announced. Bowsy is 82% funded. That has 22 days left, I think it is actually. They're an award-winning business that offers project-specific tasks for undergraduates and graduates to compete from a pool of companies that are looking for these projects to be carried out. These projects are carried out remotely, so they can do this in their own time and at their own pace. But companies can then evaluate the efficacy of the student work and kind of can use it, hopefully, to kind of start onboarding these students as potential employees for them. So this is starting to disrupt the traditional milk round that's existed for many, many years now. So that's they're the companies that we have on the site at the moment. But of course, today is about ASX, and today we're joined by Paddy Power, co-founder of ASX. Paddy, maybe you can switch your camera on if you can, please. As you will probably be aware, ASX recently did a first round with us a few weeks ago. We had overwhelming demand, and we had to close the campaign after only about 29 hours, as it had reached and even gone beyond its target amount at that stage. They don't need additional funding right now, but they wanted to open it up again to give other private investors access to the ASX shares. This will be the last time that ASX will do this before they actually before VC is brought on board later on. Probably not later on this year, but certainly within the next 12 or 18 months. So it's going to be offered to, that's going to be their Series A when they do that, and that's going to be, as I say, further on down the line. They're using a safe note for this investment. It's a slightly different instrument. It's no better or worse than it is. And we've got a good description on our blog about safe investments as well. So you might go to our blog and have a look at that. There's a specific post on there for you to see that. The safe note itself gives a 25% discount on the price that the VC will be buying in at, which effectively gives the investor now a 33% uplift. But more importantly, gives them access to the shares that they won't have at the next round, of course. So I'd like to introduce you to Paddy. Paddy has been instrumental in the growth of Paddy Power Betfair over the last 25 years as head of communications. We all know that Paddy Power Betfair is a FTSE 100 company, and the market cap is bigger than Ryanair, Bank of Ireland, and AIB combined. So you can just see the size of the business that it is. So Paddy brings together a wealth of expertise and experience, as well as industry connections to this new investment opportunity. So Paddy, you're very welcome to join us.
Thanks very much, Chris. I'd love to say it was all my hard work that got Paddy where it was. I'd like to think I played a small little part along the way, but no, thanks a million. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's tuned in today, because I know webinars can sometimes be tedious. Hopefully this one won't be, but it's really encouraging to see how well the fundraising has gone, the crowdfunding, and also just how much interest there is and how many questions we've been getting, and how much there's a bit of interest in the media and that kind of thing. And that's really encouraging for us from, I guess, a validation point of view, and it's just an exciting journey that we're on. So yeah,
absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I'm gonna go in. I guess the way to do this, I'm going to present the deck, and you've probably seen it already because it's up on the Spark platform. I'm going to present that, hopefully give you a bit more information on it, and then I think the Q&A at the end is going to be not that my deck is going to be boring, but the most interesting part I think is going to be the Q&A at the end. So without further ado.
Listen, you share your screen and get the deck up, and I'll fade into the background, and I'll see you just in front of the Q&A. But before you do that, Paddy, just everybody, there is a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So please add your questions into that rather than the chat. The chat gets too congested, and it's difficult for us to kind of monitor them very easily. So put your questions into the Q&A, and we will ask Paddy those questions in a few minutes' time. But Paddy, over to you, and the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Chris. The most nerve-wracking thing about today is making sure the screen share works. Boom, result. Okay, so ASX. I'm assuming that you've all kind of watched the videos on Spark and that, so you have a fair idea of what ASX is and what the opportunity is. But I'm going to lash through it again anyway. So. Table of contents, they're going to talk to you a bit about the mission and value proposition, about US sports betting, the product, the market, the team, all the usual stuff that you'd expect. So let's kick off. So first of all, very first button I press. There we go. So the American Sports Exchange, that's what ASX stands for. So it's a sports-focused fintech company delivering a revolutionary exchange to bet and speculate on player performance every match, every season, which is a very fancy way of saying it's basically a mishmash hybrid of fantasy sports and traditional sports betting. And that's very appealing because it allows people the opportunity to get the benefit from both those types of betting, which are very, very popular around the world, in the US, particularly with fantasy, and everywhere else with traditional sports betting. It's powered by Accelerator, which is a very creative program developed by Sportradar. And that's very important because Sportradar are one of two, themselves and Opta and Opta are the two owners and distributors of sports data rights around the world. So Sportradar ran an accelerator program for startups, and we won that, which basically the prize was we get free access to their sports data, which is worth about 300 grand, which is something that it would have been prohibitive for us to have this product that we have, especially this early stage, without winning that program. So it's proved to be very, very important to us. And as I explained to you on this slide, the reason why, because what our product on our platform does, it offers you or the player the opportunity to build a portfolio of players or teams, and their performance on the pitch will affect their share price. So effectively what we built is a virtual stock exchange, and the stock exchange can contain football teams, football players, NFL, NBA, any sports teams is what we've targeted for at the moment. And the more stats heavy the sport, the more suitable it is to ASX and to market fluctuation and price fluctuation. The algorithm that we built is one that it basically, using the algorithm, it's based on fantasy sports scoring model. And why that's really important is because for the game to be engaging, you need lots of fluctuation in stock prices and share prices. And for that to happen, the player's performance on the pitch will impact on how their stock changes. So there will be some market, like traditional buy and sell, impact into the share price fluctuation, but it's majority based on performance on the pitch. So if your player scores 4 touchdowns in a game, his share price won't drop, basically. So you can have trust in the faith of the performance on the pitch, which is very important. Now, you can see there the traditional betting, obviously, the fastest growing part of traditional betting, as I know well myself, is in-play betting, but fans can't bet on player performance. And then with fantasy sports, once the event starts, you've picked your team and you have to wait until the game ends and see how the points fall and everything like that. And the beauty of having the Sportradar piece is that we're able to offer the best of both worlds effectively. So you can bet on player performance in all markets, and also you can bet in real time, which increases fan engagement and increases your potential to win and lose, and just fluctuations, as I mentioned before, because we get the live feed via the Sportradar connection, that the prices will change in real time while you're watching a match, which makes it all the more appealing and all the more engaging. State of play, just talk about size of the market. It's just a really exciting time, I guess, down to the sports betting market, because not so long ago, America realized that prohibition doesn't work. You think they might have copped onto that before, but anyway, what they've did, the laws have changed in the states, and it's now up to each individual state whether they want to legalize sports betting and gambling. And it's like a monumental legislative shift in the US. And that means that the market has become a gold rush, a land grab, the sexy place to be. It's just, they're saying it's going to grow 400% over the next 4 years. I mean, we used to always say back in the day, when we always had the states at the, at the back of our minds as the holy grail, a place to go to, the estimation at that stage was there was that 200 or 300 billions worth of black market betting activity going on in the states. So it's quite obvious that the states individually, like the individual states over there, will obviously try to regulate that and therefore tax it, because there's a huge amount of tax that wasn't getting collected from people who are wagering in the states. And that's basically what's happening at the moment. And it's just deregulating on a state by state basis. And, it's happening all the time and very, very quickly. And hence the massive growth in the marketplace. So that's the market opportunity. It's huge, and it's growing very quickly as well. The global markets, it's growing because there's a lot of other countries around the world, India, China, someplace in the Far East, where they're still considered a black market for gambling, but an awful lot of black market gambling does go on there. So it does seem that they will regulate over time, and the US is a good test case for that. And as they do, as I said, the governments will see the potential tax benefit of and basically mental health benefit and all that kind of stuff. Everything's positive about having a regulated marketplace, especially for something that's happening already. And that's a trend that's happening across the world. So and also esports is another area that we're kind of making small inroads in at the moment, and it's just one that has never really been tapped into by the gambling market. And I know from experience it's probably because the gambling market has been too busy growing in their traditional marketplace. So there is a huge untapped potential because of the amount of eyeballs on esports at the moment. Player performance speculation in the States, I think. Logically, the reason why daily fantasy sports is and has been so big in the States is because traditional betting was illegal, effectively, and that was a way for people to scratch that itch of being able to have a bet rather than go into the pub and bet with the fella down the back who takes the illegal bets. So, and what that saw was two basically winners emerge in that market. FanDuel, which ultimately was acquired by Flutter, by Paddy Bar Betfair, and DraftKings. Now, DraftKings in its own right is a 20 billion valuation. And that's growing from about a 500 million valuation in the last couple of years. And FanDuel is estimated at about 11 or 12 billion valuation. And there's a lot of pressure, you may have read in the press recently, for Flutter to spin out FanDuel to have a separate IPO over there because they feel the valuation is too low versus DraftKings. That's simply because FanDuel is bigger and growing faster than DraftKings, but yet is worth less in the marketplace because it's part of the overall group. Anyway, it's besides the point. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is just the size and pace of growth in the marketplace in the States, and it is mind-bogglingly big. So with regard to the bets and the multiple gaming and revenue avenues that we have on ASX, so the majority of bets are short-term and binary, which means you basically lose your entire stake in the hope of winning a multiple of it. And the reason why is because the market is reliant on fixed odds models. So that requires pure objectivity and definitive outcomes, and it's very binary, as I said. But actually now, if we have with the likes of ASX, what we do is we tick all the boxes. So we have the traditional betting boxes, which offers you a chance of winning big, and obviously it takes away the binary nature of your bet, because the value of your bet can change during play. And with our live feed, as I said, from Sportradar, it means that we sustain fan engagement for much longer and much stronger throughout each individual match or event. And it could be for one match, it could be for a weekend, it could be for half a match, it could be for an event. The frame of the game can be decided by the players themselves. So it's a very appealing fan engagement tool. And that is a very sexy word for a lot of our partners, and it's a partnership strategy that we're going after, which I will talk to you a little bit later on about, because all these big teams and big franchises and big sports networks, what they want is to keep fans and to keep eyeballs on their platforms during matches, rather than having them wander off and drift off to third parties. So this is basically, again, more on the product itself. It's just making fantasy sports a bit better. It's just making it more real. So fantasy sports traditionally was, literally countdown clock saying, get your team in quick. The game is going to kick off. You got to get your team in. If you miss the kickoff time, miss the whistle, you're out. You have to wait until the next game. And this one changes all that, because you can trade, you can change your team, you can trade your the individual players you have on your fantasy team throughout the game. You can be in a private game with your friends where there's lots of to and fro. You could be slag. I could slag Chris because his lad just got sent off and my lad scored a hat trick, and poor old Chris has done his dough or whatever, but then he might come back with something else by the end of the game and beat me. So it's a really powerful tool from an engagement perspective. And because the player's performance on the pitch defines their final value, it means you can use your skill or your knowledge or your perceived knowledge of what happens in a sport, and you can actually monetize that, which I think is really appealing from a backing up your opinion point of view. So in terms of the team, they always say that with these kind of startups that you need a product, a team, and an opportunity. And I think the opportunities speaks for itself. I mean, it's obviously bananas big in the States. The product I've spoken a bit about. I think it's just about, well, it's an operationally really good, slick product. I think that's there. But the team, I think, is the most important and the most impressive thing we have. Despite me, we do have some grown-ups there as well. Thanks be to God. So my experience, Chris gave me a bit of a build up at the start. So I've been obviously in the industry for. I actually got called an industry veteran last week in the paper, which was mildly depressing. But 26 years actually in Paddy Power, and so I've met a few people and done a few things, and I know a thing or two about the industry. Well, I hope I do at this stage anyway. Conal Flood, CTO, he's jumped ship from JP Morgan. He was like one of their lead quant software engineer there, building trading models on the real stock exchange and things like that. So very, very on point for us. The fact that he's willing to jump, and as I can say this about all our team, the fact they're willing to jump ship from proper big boy jobs and big girl jobs to getting a big salary, to take a much more a modest salary from us to believe in this product and believe in the journey that we're on, I think is really encouraging for us. Julie Allison. I worked with Julie for many years in Paddy Power. She's brilliant. She's a commercial genius, I think, with regard to doing contracts and things like that. She left Paddy Power to go to Red Tiger Gaming, which was a gaming company, which she was part of a couple of Paddy Power people who left and did that actually, and she was one of them. And they flipped that business around and completely turned the direction of the business around and sold it on for hundreds of millions, and they all did very well out of that. So we're very encouraged that she's joined. Huge experience in the space. We got Mike Griffith, who's I will call him an industry veteran. He was chief commercial officer in the Racing Post. He knows the industry inside out. He's brilliant. He is the real grown up of the group to keep us all on the straight and narrow all the time, and he's leading the charge. He's CEO for us. We have Ryan McCumber, who's a board director. He's part of the Hype Accelerator program, and he joined our board since that. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute too, because that's one of the most important assets that we have is our Hype connections. And then Anthony Pontoriero, who is a founder and CEO of Instant Sponsor, his own company, which was basically matching sponsors with appropriate partners. And he's actually put that company on hold and jumped ship to join us because he sees the excitement in this opportunity. He's our first boots on the ground in the States, and he'll be looking after kind of, I guess, our sales and partnership teams over there. So that's the team. It's pretty good. I think I would say better than it should be for a startup at this stage, because I think that we've got a lot of grown-ups there, and I think they know people who they've worked with over the years. They can build out their teams as appropriate as we're scaling up, and it takes away one of the there's many growing pains, but one of the growing pains will certainly be will be diluted a bit with the strength of that team. Now, Hype, I mentioned them there because of Ryan. So I want to talk about, this is a bit about our journey. So I mentioned the Sport Radar Accelerator program, which we won in Q1 2021. So that's amazing. It's a huge headache that we don't have now in terms of a cash burn. because we'll have those until we become commercial, until we basically have a commercial model that we'll end up paying for those fees, but at the moment we don't have them. We don't have any cost to them, which is amazing. In Q2 2021, we were actually selected to participate in this prestigious Israeli-based Hype Accelerator program. It's the world's leading sports tech program, and it nurtures partnerships basically between sports tech startups and the biggest clubs and brands in the world, which sounds very fancy, but it has been amazing for us because we were very successful in that. We ended up being whittled down from 1,500 startups to winning it, and we ended up getting selected by some of their partners. So the likes of Sinclair Broadcast Group is in there. They have 100 million eyeballs a week through their various TV networks in the States. They're one of the biggest media companies over there. There's another company, Rogers Media, the biggest telco in Canada. There's DAZN, you see them down the bottom. They're the biggest streamers of sport in the world. The Phillies, the Knights, all these big sports franchises as well are all partners of Hype, and they've selected us to pilot with. So that means that we're not banging on the doors going, hey, look at us, look what we're selling. They've actually chosen us and said, I really like what you're doing. You guys are really interesting. Let's work out, see what a pilot looks like. And that being the case, it gives us just a massive leap forward. And it also allows, I mentioned earlier, our partnership first strategy. So rather than building this, because one of the scariest things about this is the fact that the US market is what we're after. And the US market is just so big. It's like, how could you possibly even be relevant at any manner of means and scratch the surface of it? It's just such a big market. And if we use a partnership first strategy, then through these partners, we got a successful pilot, successful partnership deal with them. And then we get access to their customers and their fans. And through that, we scale very, very quickly. And that is hugely important to our strategy. So it's a great thing to have that we've achieved those two things, that more important than we probably even realized the time when we were entering into them. But now you look back and you go, thank God we have those two things under our belt, because it gives us huge credibility and also great access to potential partners down the road. So financial projections, again, it's I've told you about the size of the market. So I do think we're close. We're about 10 weeks away from our first pilot. So obviously pretty confident that we'll be doing that successfully, because we're working with the partners to design that pilot to make sure it works for them. And so once that's successful, you'd like to think a partnership agreement happens straight after that. And then I think our revenues, we project them to be within the millions very, very quickly, within a year, within 2 years, more the low millions. And it just kind of grows exponentially then from there on, because as you prove your partnership worth, it just rolls, and you can just scale that up as we scale up the team and the product and the technology. So the financial projections are significant. They're like early millions within a year or two. And then, I mean, how many zeros are on your calculator in 4 or 5 years' time? Let's hope. Why invest in ASX? Well, cheapers. I think the outstanding track record of the founders. I think the team is really important. I mean, it really, as I said it before, it's product, team, opportunity. I think the team, the fact that we have kind of senior people running that team means that we've probably got beyond some of the headaches that we would normally have as a startup, right? So I think that they'll obviously be able to fill out their teams as we raise funds and as we're scaling, be able to fill out our teams and basically kill the opportunities as we have them. The market size is there; it's bananas, it's huge. You know, you can see how successful Flutter's been. It's so big, it's actually bigger than Ryanair and all the Irish banks combined. And FanDuel and DraftKings represent 75% of the US betting market. There's so much consolidation and growth and land grab and people freaking out going, I got to get myself into this game in the States, that it's quite hot at the moment as a marketplace for products that are disruptive and products that are engaging, and fan engagement is the key. And I think we have that box massively ticked. The sectoral growth rates are huge. Even though the market is massive, it's still growing very quickly in the States. And that's where we have specialist expertise and lots of sporting contacts through Hype and through other factors as well, or other avenues too. The technology is good. The technology is great. It works. We've been tested to the nth degree. We've worked it. We run proper real money games and everything like that. It's been proven to be an engaging tool, and with a bit more investment, we'll be able to take a huge amount more numbers on it. So the pilot schemes, we're ready to go with them. We're really looking forward to them. highly lucrative key partnership discussions. As I said, through our Hype connections and our own connections, we're in discussions with some major brands at the minute. They're all going very, very positively. I mean, going into them, you'd say, will they all work? Looks like they might at this stage, which is brilliant. So no kind of big roadblocks just yet. And also, as I said, the fundraising has been so encouraging from lots of industry veterans, as well as the crowdfunding. We have private funding going on under the exact same terms, and it's just been really encouraging how popular it's been. So yeah, look, I mean, I think it's a great. I think it's a great opportunity. I wouldn't be here, and I think that we've got a real chance. I really do. I think the trajectory and the momentum that we've got at the moment it could not be more positive and more encouraging. So yeah, I mean, I'd suggest, as the tagline says, stop betting and start investing. So fingers crossed.
Paddy, lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent presentation. And there's loads of questions coming in here, as you might understand. So Fergal, I think you might have the first one there, do you?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Paddy. Great presentation. Yeah, so there's a number of questions just around the partnership strategy, the go-to-market, and primarily where are you looking to launch the product? Obviously in the US initially, but what are the global plans, Paddy?
Okay, so a couple of things there. First of all, I mentioned it's a partner-first strategy because we've chosen that path as we think scaling quickly is going to be really important, especially in the US market, because the market is so vast, and we think that's the quickest way for us to scale. With regard to other territories, what we call an Atlantic strategy. We see it as a UK-US dual strategy. In the UK, through Football Index, there's a huge opportunity there in a proven demand for this type of product, and lots of kind of disappointed customers who potentially could be customers of ours, and also an ecosystem of affiliate marketers and things like that, whereby we could tap into that too. So that'll be our two-pronged approach.
Very good. Another question in here. What makes you so confident there'll be a demand for this new type of betting?
Well, I just said it there. It was proven as this type of betting was a company called Football Index in the UK, which had a similar type thing. And we obviously their model was flawed and it didn't work out for them, but it showed there is a demand for this type of product there. It's like fantasy sports is such a fast growing product in the US, and the big fantasy sports players, FanDuel and DraftKings, have pivoted into sports betting and are trying to convert those fantasy players into sports bettors. And the fact that there's such a big demand for that, it shows that the fusion of the two is a sweet spot.
Very good.
Excellent. Another one here, just regarding the technology and I suppose the technology roadmap. How developed is it, Paddy? And how do you plan to scale that side of the business to meet the demand?
So technology is there. The game is played. We've played it any amount of times to test it out on various games. We've had 500 to 1,000 players on it so far, and all gone very, very well. We can definitely improve the user journey and things like that. So a lot of our investment in product will go to doing that, making it just a bit slicker and a bit cooler, and that's perfectly within our reach. And I think any of the feedback that we've had from the so-called experts in the space it's very encouraging, that they're very impressed with how far how good the technology is and how ready it is to press go with.
Very good. Just a reminder, please put your questions into the Q&A, not the chat if you can, please. As I say, it makes them all a little easier for us to kind of go through them. Next question about the technology and the IP. How well is it protected, Paddy, please?
So the technology is all ours and the algorithms all ours. It's very difficult to protect software, I guess, but I guess the one thing that's encouraging about it is that our team is so good, and if we're and our plans are so good to scale quickly, that in some way protects us as maybe the first to market will be the one with the best chance of winning. But the fact that we have our own algorithm and our own tech gives us some comfort.
Very good.
Excellent. Valuation questions here as well, just regarding the valuation. If you do hit your 3-year profit targets, what do you foresee, or what do you think the business, the valuation of the business will be, or what's your goal? It's a difficult one.
I'm really afraid to say because it'll sound unbelievable, but I honestly think this is a case of I hope this is the right thing to say, but I really believe this is one where we're not going to be sitting here in 5 years' time, limping along, going, I'm not sure what we're doing, lads, scratching our heads. I think at that stage we will have absolutely made it, or it won't have worked at all. It's one of those ones where I think within a very short period of time we'll be Series A fundraising. I'd like to think, I mean, just to give you a little bit of validation to that, a competitor, the only competitor that we're aware of doing something similar is a company called Jock Market, who are very new. They've just raised 10 million at a 50 million valuation. Their tech is nothing like anywhere near our tech is already. And they're only starting out, and that's 10 million at a 50 million valuation they've raised in the States. So that gives you an indication of the potential. I don't know, for example, but I think if we're doing Series A, there's no point in us doing a Series A for small money. We're going to be looking at something like that, 50 or 100 million, I would say.
Excellent.
Okay, next question. What do you see as the biggest risks to hitting your targets?
Honestly, the thing that keeps me up at night is just not scaling fast enough. Because the opportunity is huge, obviously, but so is the market in the US. And it keeps, like, I understand we've got a great team, a great product and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that keeps me up is, like, if we kind of can't afford to stop. We have to just keep going, keep pushing and just make these partners. It's just basically one step at a time and make these partnership deals happen. That leads us to the next step, which leads to the next step. Eventually, for us to actually properly tackle the US market, we need so much more money than we're fundraising for at the moment, but we need steps to get there so we can achieve that valuation through Series A. So it's step by step. And I think that the speed of that scalability is the risk. If we do it slowly, we'll miss the boat and lose the race.
Excellent. Just reading through loads of questions here. What percentage of your business do you think will come from the US over the next 3 years? So what kind of focus or bias will be in the US?
I think to pick a number, I'd say 80%. I mean, that's the sexy part of the market for me. That's where the opportunity is. I think if when we get one or two partnership deals signed, I think it just becomes a bit of a snowball effect. I mean, I've said it to a few people, it's an anecdotal thing, but like we were approached by the New Orleans Saints, like kind of cold called by an NFL team to say, hey, we heard about this thing you're doing. What are you doing? Like, and that's like, okay, it's only an anecdotal thing, but you're going like, Jesus, that's amazing. You know what I mean? There's talkability. It's hot at the moment. It's a hot space. And we're just trying to tap into that.
Is that because the US sports are very statistic heavy? Is that why you think that's the demand's there?
I think so. I think and daily fantasy is huge as well. And also there's another couple of factors why we'd be an appealing product for some of the franchises who have fans all across the States, is that, as I mentioned in the presentation, the states are legalizing state by state, and everybody's interested in this space. It's still the gambling space, so people are nervous about that. We have obviously free to play, peer to peer. It's a very, very soft toe dip in the water for some people, potentially for some big franchises and that. So it's a good way as an introduction into the gaming space, the gambling space for some big franchises. As I said, fan engagement for them is everything. So any kind of tool you can give them to engage. And also I mentioned Sport Radar earlier, and just as an aside as well, because Sport Radar because we're one of their champions, I guess, because we won one of their accelerator programs, what they effectively do is they go to the NBA or somebody like that and they'll say, let us distribute your sports rights, and this is how you monetize them. So that's really in their interest to see us do well, because then they'll say, here's one way you could monetize your rights is through this ASX game. So that's there's all these little opportunities at play.
Yeah, very good.
Brilliant.
Okay. This question is: who are your biggest competitors? You mentioned Jock Market there a minute ago, and is there room for all of you?
The market's so big. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to win the race. I'd like to be first there, and hopefully there won't be room for anyone else. But my instinct says the market is so big. It's eventually it might get to just one ASX, and the ticker tape's going across like a Bloomberg sign and everything. Every time you watch sport, that's the dream, and it might be the case. But the reality is the market is so big that there probably is room for a few.
Yeah, very good.
Excellent. And just on the product and the sports, what other sports are you looking at developing? We're talking before about MMA and there's a lot of stats. It's very stats heavy. Have you looked into that market? It's obviously growing and quite lucrative at the moment.
Yeah, so we're like one of the first pilots we'll hopefully be doing will be with DAZN. and they have, I think they have the rights for MMA as well. It'll actually be on football with them, but I think they have the rights for MMA too. And look, the back end, I suppose you could call it, it kind of doesn't matter what sport it is. Once you plug it in and you get the stats feed and you put the scoring system in place, then you press go and off you go. So it's completely adaptable to various different sports.
Very good. Question in here, is there any way the exchange can be used to hedge longer term bets, similar to how you can lay a market in Paddy Power Betfair?
Not right now, but potentially in the future there could be, I guess. It's at the moment it depends how you set up your game. I guess you could have it where you could short things as well ultimately, but at the moment it's more straightforward than that at this stage.
Good.
Excellent. Just a question here about some of the markets as well. Betting in India is growing rapidly. Have you considered entering that market? I presume it's going to be cricket was one of the main sports there.
Not just cricket, but we have actually last week we were introduced to the IPL, the Indian Premier League at cricket, and also actually kabaddi, which is you may have seen come up on your Sky Sports feeds, but it's obviously huge in India as well. I can't claim to be an expert in kabaddi, but we had an introduction to the Kabaddi Federation of India. I'm not sure what they're called, but so I can't say that's going to come to anything, but we've had an introduction, so that's a start.
I can claim to be an expert in kabaddi as well, though, because when Channel 4 first launched back in the 80s, I think it was, they didn't have any sports other than kabaddi. So it was actually a very good, entertaining sport to watch. So I can fully recommend that if anyone wants to have a look at what kabaddi is. But anyway, that's an aside.
We'll get you on board, Chris, to design the scoring system.
So what role do you, Paddy, expect to play in the growth of the business? What you personally, Paddy, what role are you going to be playing?
Well, as a potential investor, you'd be very refreshed to learn that I won't be in charge of technology or any of that kind of grown-up stuff as well. I think the roles I can bring is my expertise has been through my career in marketing, and so I'll be able to help with that. I think that my connections and my industry experience have been good, so I've been able to make some I've had a huge confidence in introducing the product to people. It's not. I don't think it's a Hail Mary. I think once you talk people through it and show them the potential for it, like we're yet to have someone who didn't like it. So I'm really confident with that I can open a few doors, I guess, in terms of getting in front of the right people. And as I said, with the partnership first strategy, I think that's going to be important.
Excellent. Question here just on about Football Index. So how is the ASX model different to that of Football Index?
Okay, well, I mentioned earlier about the opportunity in the UK actually because of the demise of Football Index. So, in very simple terms, it's hugely different. It's very different. Football Index had an infinite number of shares, therefore the shares ultimately were valueless. So that was the main reason. So their modelling was wrong. Ours isn't. So, it's very different. But what the opportunity there is that lots of people played Football Index, and there's lots of people out there with an interest in that. There'll obviously be a trust thing. There'll be a trust issue that we'll have to basically work around and solve, and I'm confident we can do that. So when the time is right and it's appropriate, and could even be this summer before the season kicks off again, we'll be tapping into that.
Very good. Okay, last two questions. Time for two more. To what extent will ASX be able to influence the price on offer, or is it 100% determined by an algorithm?
So the way we've built the algorithm is that we thought it's very important for the integrity of the user that what happens in front of their eyes reflects in the value of their portfolio, if you like. So, it's not pure market forces where there could be everyone just buys one player and therefore even if he plays rubbish, his share price goes up, whatever. There will be an element of that, but just to put a number on it, it's like 80-something% of the fluctuation in price will be based on player performance, and the rest will be based on market sentiment and demand and buying and selling and things like that. So it's like we'll have no impact on it really. It'll be the player's performance itself which will impact on their share price.
Okay.
Brilliant. Really good question here, actually quite important as well from Colm. What is the likely exit for an investor? Are you considering floating the business, or being bought out, and who would buy you out and why? What's, I suppose, the timeline maybe as well, Paddy, just for some of our existing investors here who have invested.
We'll be growing so fast. We'll buy everyone else out. No, I think realistically, I think that the way we're thinking is we're thinking Series A very quickly. That gives us like, big money to go and properly make ourselves very significant in the US. That being the case, we become a very attractive target, I would say, to possibly one of the betting companies, possibly one of the sports networks, possibly one of the leagues. But and ultimately, it absolutely could IPO depending on the direction it's heading in. I honestly, hand on heart, I would say presuming we're all successful and we hit all the milestones along the way, I'd say we'd probably be bought out.
Very good. Okay,
brilliant.
Last one from me. Well, actually two here. How much are you willing to go to in the crowdfunding campaign?
Look, we said we go to 1 million, but I know it's heading that way already, even before today. I think we'd be. Look, we're not going to switch it off as quickly as we switched off the previous one. So I don't mind going a little bit through 1 million, but we can't. At some stage, we have to stop having the conversations about funding and get on and do it. You know what I mean? So I'm really conscious of that. That I keep saying it's about speed and scale, and yet much as I'm very grateful, we're raising funds. I'm not spending a lot of time doing that. So I think like it won't be long after 1 million. I think that will be, because we've got some private investment as well coming too, which gives us a huge amount of roadway. And just to reassure you, hopefully to reassure you, but what we're going to do with the money is we're not going to, we could stretch it out and make it last 2 or 3 years or whatever, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go big and go hard and go quick, because it's all about scaling fast. So the money we raise now, we're going to spend obviously cleverly by scaling up the team and smashing the opportunities. Like, there could be nothing wasted or anything like that, but at the same time, we're not trying to drag this out. We're trying to hit the opportunity hard, nice and quickly. So it's going to be go hard or go home.
Very good. And
brilliant.
Obviously you've put money into the business already, but you're also putting 50 grand into this round, I think, as well, Paddy, aren't you?
I am, yeah, of course I am. I've obviously been heavily invested in it up to now, and it's encouraging that other people are seeing the benefit in it too. But yeah, I'm happy to put another 50 in now, because I guess to show faith in this, I really think that we've got a massive chance. The momentum we've got and the kind of the doors we've got pushed ajar at this stage now, it just augurs really well. I don't want to be, I can't make any guarantees or anything like that, but I'm really, really happy with where we're going and where we are.
Excellent. Okay, guys.
There's loads of questions here, Chris, that we'll probably put together. I think there's over 40.
Yeah, no, there's loads of questions in there, but we won't have time to go through them all. So Fergal, thanks very much for asking those questions, and Paddy, of course, thanks very much for answering them. So I think that'll probably conclude our workings for today. So thanks very much, and thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you again soon. Thanks very much.
Cheers.